hello everybody. Once again, we're back for your weird Monday, start of the week sort of show. I'm Jeff with the G, and as always, I'm with Scabs the Clown, and we are going to be gaffing the truth. It's going to be a lot of fun. How you doing, Scabs?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I had today off, and so I was just busy working on stuff, including the new opener that everybody watched there with a friend of the show and a friend of ours. Mexican did that music. You're gonna hear it again at the end. Plus, I just changed it up because I thought it'd be fun.
Right on. Yeah, Mexican. I've known Mexican for a long time, and we were actually in a band together for a while. So
Yeah,
he's one of those dudes. Like, it's like, what instruments do you play, Mexi? And he's like, yes. He's just one of those very musical-minded guys.
like we talked about putting music on, and I listened to a lot of stuff on Reverb Nation, which go to reverbnation.com/Mexican. You can track down all his music, and I picked a couple of songs I kind of liked. I went with this one for this show, which is called "The Darkness," which is the name of the song, which I thought was a really good way for an intro song. So, but some other stuff might be used with other things happening here on the channel, so it'll be a lot of fun. So today, because it was so much fun last time, we figured we are going to go ahead and talk about ghosts, spirits.
Yeah, it's spooky season.
It is spooky season, just about. So we both put feelers out, and plus I did a little bit more research for some of the more famous Texas ghost stories. How do you want to start? Do you want to start with like somebody's personal stuff? You want me to start strong with like a bigger nick, like a ghost story?
I think famous ghost story would be a good way to start.
All right, cool. All right, so let's talk about the Lady of White Rock Lake.
I don't even know where White Rock Lake is.
Oh, okay. White Rock Lake is up in the Dallas area.
Okay.
It's one of the 8,000 man-made lakes that are here in Texas, because there are only like 2 or 3 natural lakes. Everything else has been made in the last like 100 years.
Yeah.
All right. So in White Rock Lake, there is this is a famous. Really like reading it. I go, oh yeah, it's that story. Basically, is the Lady of Lake is late at night driving around the lake. You may come across and find a woman stranded on the side of the road and with damp clothes on. Now, she could be the Lady of the Lake, who is always trying to go home. This mysterious, well-to-do woman perished in a nighttime boating accident on the lake some 40-some-odd years ago. But she never got the hint that she was dead. So whenever the moon is full and Halloween is near, like now, she emerges from the cattails on the lake's western shore near Lothar Drive, and her once fashionable Neiman Marcus evening gown soaking wet. She'll then flag down any unsuspecting motorist, climb into the back of their car, and ask to be taken to an address on Gaston Avenue. And by the time the car reaches the destination, all that's left there is a puddle of water.
I've heard several variations of that story.
I know, it's like it's one of those weird kind of like when I like, but it's yes, that is the Lady in the Lake story is a very infamous ghost story from a lot of different places, but that's one of the big ones here in Texas. There's a couple more. I'll get into some other ones that are a little bit less cliched, for lack of a better term. I figured that was a fun one to start with.
Yeah.
So let's talk some. What about some? Let's talk about some people we know and their stuff.
All right. So I put feelers up, put a couple of posts up about this, and one of the posts is from. I'm just gonna use first names. I don't want to. Nobody really said whether or not to use their whole name, so first name will be fine.
You can always see the weird fake names we did last time.
Yeah. One of my Facebook friends, Jody, said, once had a weird 3-level touch globe lamp in the living room growing up. It would occasionally change brightness slowly for several minutes at a time. One time my mother barked, "Look, you little fucking spirits, cut your shit," when it was happening, and it suddenly went ape shit, changing between each setting like a damn strobe light for about 2 minutes before someone got up to turn it off. But the moment they got a few inches away, it stopped completely.
So a little like a little, yeah, a little ghost messing with the ghost in the machine, as it were, electrical, almost gremlin like, if you had the old classic gremlin, like pre 1984 movie
Yeah,
gremlin, with messing with electronics and stuff like that. That's really interesting. That could be a lot of things, but
I've had similar experiences like that. Like we had a TV, like just randomly, it would kind of get staticky, and it seemed like the closer something was getting to it, the more staticky it got. And then you could ask it, "Hey, please, could you stop doing that?" And it would actually just stop. There was another TV in our kitchen. It was an older TV, just a regular tube TV. Didn't have anything special about it. Didn't have a timer or an alarm or anything like that. But and it wasn't at the same time every day, but it was usually between like 3 and 4 every day. That TV would just turn on for no reason.
huh,
So I mean, could have been an electrical issue, could have been some kind of weird thing, but who knows?
that's pretty weird. Not gonna lie, it's kind of odd. When like back when the house townhouse I lived in Houston, I, of course, in the elder skeptic here in the group, but my late wife was a very firm believer in this sort of stuff. And so anytime something weird happened, she would go, "It's got to be the whatever." Usually it's her grandparents. Uh, but yeah, every once in a while, be an electrical issue. Like the TV will go off and there'd be a click, and then suddenly it would click back on to some random Spanish channel every time. And like we don't, it's not even programmed into the TV to go to those channels, because un poquito español. So I don't typically watch Spanish TV. So
Um,
that's, it's just a weird kind of, just a glitch. I still fault the fact is that there's old wiring in the house, and so it would spike, and that was a reaction towards the television, which is it would reset itself, and it would just tune to the first channel that it would come to, which, without having an antenna, usually means it goes to a Spanish channel. So Spanish or religious are the two things will pop up with almost no antennas, at least in Houston.
yeah, for sure.
So that still is really interesting. That like you like literally like we'll have like a quick power surge, and then the TV will come back on. It's like blasting, Telemundo or something.
Yeah, I had a clock. It was like a clock radio that it was probably just some glitch, but like this thing would like change times all the time. When it did keep time almost normally, like it would fall a minute behind every day. So, it would just be shorter and shorter and shorter than the actual time. But then, like I'd get home from school and it'd be like 2:30, 3 o'clock, whatever, but it would show that it was 9 o'clock. And the next day it'd be 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock. It just always changed. I mean, I ended up just throwing that thing away because figured faulty wiring
That's
or
fair,
something.
yeah. That's so weird. I mean, it's so these stuff still counts as being weird stuff, and can be attributed, if you are such a believer, this is a thing that could be attributed to such a thing. So cool. Um, are you familiar with Bailey's Light at all?
What's that?
Bailey's Light.
Haley's light. No, but if it's anything like the local story here, I'll let you know.
So a Bailey's Light. So it's a bright orange light about the size of a basketball, and if it happens to pass you on your car when you're driving down 35, Highway 35, don't stop unless you got some hooch in your trunk, because that is actually Britt Bailey, who is the elder statesman of Texas Ghosts, who's wandering around just looking for a drink. Now, Bailey was actually buried on the coastal prairie between Angleton and West Columbia in like 1833.
Okay.
Uh, as he had requested, he was interred standing up. So he was buried standing up and facing west with his gun over his shoulder and his powder horn by his side. So he's like ready to go. Yeah, that's old timers say that spirits on the prowl, because the one burial crest that was denied was actually a jug of whiskey to take to the promised land. So he never got, basically, like pharaohs. He was not buried with his whiskey. And so now he appears every 7 years on a cold, drizzly autumn night, maybe like this one coming up. Um, and he's going around tracking down drinks. Apparently, he was there's a thing called Bailey's Prairie, which is out that way, which now has a subdivision in it, so it gets kind of crazier there too. So, I mean, that's in the Houston area, so that's kind of interesting. I thought. I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
and
I don't
that's
know
actually more of
much
a
of.
unique. It's more of a unique tale versus that's. I mean, I heard tales of stuff that kind of like this with other stuff, but like it's like
Mm,
buried standing up with his gun at the ready, and he
yeah.
didn't get that last thing for his request, and that's why he's always alive, is because brother just needs a drink.
Yeah. I wonder if anybody's like actually like, taking whiskey out there to try and help him out. Like, does he just like go away after he gets his whiskey, or
I don't know.
like?
Like, I think he pops up for a bit. I guess my guess is probably around the time that he was buried. To be my guess,
Yeah.
if it's autumn, he's probably buried in autumn, and that's how it goes. Now, where he actually is buried, I don't know. It's just like one of those popular stories that has popped up over the years. So
Yeah. One of the ones local to here, there's an area called Bear Creek, and Bear Creek's in Addicks, and Addicks is a reservoir. So yeah, anytime it floods really bad, Addicks fills up with water. Sometimes the streets completely covered everything. There's a big dam that's pretty much always got water coming out of it. But in there, there's apparently a cemetery called the Blue Light Cemetery. And if you can find this cemetery in the middle of the woods, a blue light will appear and chase you out. It's one of those, like, kids would go run around in the woods to try to find this cemetery. And if it's an actual cemetery, I don't know, because it's always those like, yeah, me and my friends went, and it's just some like older guy telling me that he and his friends went in the 70s when they were teenagers or something like that.
yeah,
But the thing that adds a little more realism to it, and like this is true, the area is called Addicks because originally there was a small town built there, and it was the town of Addicks, and they found out in the worst way possible that that whole area was a floodplain. So there's an area in Addicks Reservoir where there is like a ghost town. There's
hmm
like a small town with some structures still standing. I mean, I'm sure they're like in complete disarray at this point, if they're even still standing. Because I mean, this was like back in the early 1900s when this place was established.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, like that's an actual story. The town of Addicks, after all that, after they got flooded out, they left everything there and created another small town, kind of in the, I don't know, maybe like 20, 30 miles away. So there's a little small town called Addicks, like outside of Houston. But yeah, blue light. And God, there's the other stories about you'll see a light in the distance, and it's said that it's the lantern of a slave who was trying to get away, and they round him up and killed him, and yeah, now you just see his lantern in the distance walking down the highway.
That's also a very common ghost story that's being told throughout the nation. Is that similar story, and actually
Mm,
that story even dates back even farther than that basic story, even pre. That's like pre-Revolutionary War, even in the U.S. I think that's one of the more common. That's what a really common sort of story is like the. That was the talk that the Marfa lights had something to do. Like, that was one of the explanations for the Marfa lights, was that something like that. So, but
just
also alien stuff too, sort of depending on what your stuff is when it comes to Marfa.
yeah, yeah. I've always like, I'd like to see the Marfa lights. That's really awesome. But I've also wondered, like, because they can't, they think they've explained them at this point, and it's like, um, lights are refracting off of some atmospheric anomaly, and that's why you see the weird lights. And it's like that kind of doesn't make sense, but okay.
It's very my understanding is very aurora borealis ish. It's just like like where it's standing at. It's just like a perfect place where different climate, like the different types of stuff, just hits the right spot where that way
Yeah, I mean, it
atmospheric
is like right above a
conditions.
valley.
Yeah, so it's all the atmospheric conditions are just perfect, and they're just close enough or far enough away from civilization, as it were, to create that sort of effect. Is my understanding. I don't know. Let's talk. How about we talk about the devil with chicken's feet?
I've never even heard of that one.
I know. I made a point. So what? So for people watching this, and I do appreciate you guys tuning in. A lot of people are watching just they're download watching the app directly, so they're not even signed into Twitch. Which, by the way, people, you can sign in for free, and you can join in the chat to kind of talk with us back and forth and stuff, especially if you have any stories. And if you don't, that's fine too. You may just have it on your TV playing in the background of your computer without like logging in. Perfectly fine. You just have that option. It doesn't cost anything to watch to
Nope.
take part. All right, so the devil in chicken's feet. Basically, it's in South Texas around Halloween. You kind of want to stay away from the nightclubs because you just might meet the devil. Um, so basically, it's in San Antonio's El Camaroncito and Rockin' M near Lockhart. There are two places that he's recently visited, dressed as a dashing vaquero.
Ooh.
Uh, yeah, I know that's fancy. Finds young woman who's it's apparently this devil, as it were, would track down whatever lady was there who's playing the hardest to get. That's who he'd go after. Uh, Basically, and he figured out take her away and sweep her off her feet. And then the moment she looks down, popular sign for the devil is having things like, oh, I don't know, apparently chicken feet. That's a very Latin thing. So, um,
Yeah. I
and
wouldn't
then
think chicken's feet. I'd like goat legs make sense, or the legs of a bull or something, but chicken feet.
actually, weirdly enough, is that's actually like was it? I want to say yeah, that's a very Mesoamerican sort of thing when it comes to that approximation of the devil. It's like it's that weird like Santeria is a co-opting of like voodoo with Catholicism. There's
Mm.
like some other stuff from like hardcore Mexico that brings in that Mesoamerican into Catholicism. I don't know. There might be an official term. I just don't know it. So that wouldn't surprise. Or once again, it's one of those. It's the closest thing we can explain what it looks like if that's the case. I mean, it just could be weird, scaly feet. But apparently he's
Yeah.
really good at dancing. Uh, but I mean, it's the devil, but this sort of thing because he disappears, so it's kind of a ghost story. Whether it's not really the devil or just some dude from the '70s who just hasn't left yet. He's just trying to. He just got to get laid one more time to move on.
Makes sense.
But I just thought it was funny, like coming across a story called "The Devil at Chicken's Feet." It's
Yeah,
just,
right. Like,
just
it's just rant. I've got another one from one of my posts. This one is from Jordan. And Jordan says, when I was in middle school, I would randomly wake up and see an old man in a cabbie hat walking around our living room, usually focused on the corner of our living room where our TV and entertainment center was. I have night terrors pretty much nightly, so I thought at the time it was just a recurring night terror hallucination. One day, after seeing him for years, my mom randomly talked about the old man with a hat. I had never told her about I had never told her the old man with the hat I had never told her about. But when I asked her to describe him, she described him exactly. He seemed to be fascinated by our TV and stereo system, and I would see him often crouched down messing with the VCR DVD players or whatever we had at the time. Then he would walk towards the kitchen and just kind of dissipate. My mom and I talked about how neither of us were scared or uncomfortable. We just learned to cohabitate our spaces with him, and nothing crazy ever happened. I've had similar things. Our living room, I would often see like three men sitting on the couch if I walked through like from my bedroom to the living room in the middle of the night. It just looked like it was a corner couch, and it looked like just three men sitting there. Could have been my eyes, could have been shadows, could have been anything. I mean, They definitely looked 3D and real at the time. Sometimes it seemed ominous, but most of the time it was just like they were there. So I mean, I get that, with it, just kind of seeing it and going, man, whatever.
Okay, I mean it's an interesting take on like because usually usually when it comes to like the stories of like curious ghosts, as it were, which is what this sounds like, it's usually curious ghosts are less not so much interested in things but more in people. So it's really interesting that this apparition is coming in curious about things, especially electronics, apparently. So that's I find that fascinating. Maybe it's a thing that maybe he's really wanting to watch that tape of like Turner and Hooch or something, and he can't figure out how to.
He came in earlier and just caught the tail end of it. He wanted to see the rest of it,
I
but the
know,
whole
yeah,
movie.
he wanted to see back when I don't know. I mean but it's one of those. It's really interesting that like that's a new take on the whole curious ghost aspect, which some people trace that curious things like that sort of stuff aren't ghosts at all, but rather they might be like multi-dimensional beings and things like that too. Uh,
Yeah. Or I mean, one of the things that I believe in more than like, your standard ghost, like residual energy, maybe he wasn't necessarily looking at the VCR, but maybe he had something there when he lived there in his time. Maybe it was like a record player or something. That's why he was crouched down to mess with it.
yeah,
And it just
that could
happened to
be.
kind of coincide with where the VCR TV and stuff was.
That is very very true. I wouldn't doubt that. That's another thing to go with. Like basically, it's just a weird it's a weird like loop. You're watching you're watching a rerun, but you don't get the whole show. You just get that guy.
Yep.
Like
Well, whatever happened right then, while he was doing that, that energy stuck
yeah,
for whatever
could
reason.
be.
It's just like an imprint.
Yeah. So
Yeah, like it's weird that it's like you hear all the ghost stories. It's like, oh, the woman every night at midnight she jumps from the top of the building and you hear her scream, and yeah, but then like I can understand like the level of energy, causing something like that to happen. But like I'm sure like a lot of the ghost sightings that if they turn out to be, because we really don't know, if they turn out to be residual energy and it's scaring the shit out of people, it's like I wonder what mundane thing that energy is imprinting. Like just like the guy leaning down to uh, mess with a record player or something, or maybe
maybe
they're walking through the kitchen to open the fridge, and but the fridge isn't where it used to be, so it just looks like them walking and reaching.
yeah. Yeah, if it's residual energy, then apparently if it's a record, like in his time, if that's the case, then he basically is he's playing the song that mattered or the radio program that mattered most to him, and that's why that created such an imprint.
Yeah,
Could be, I don't know. Speaking of music, um, so in the old Houston Public Library building,
I've been there,
yeah, yeah,
surprisingly.
you have. Well, what's really interesting fact is, did you know it's haunted?
Yeah, everybody says it's haunted. Every building downtown is haunted, man.
Oh yeah, like we can get into the building that has somebody buried at the top of it later. But the Houston Public
Ooh,
Library, uh, basically, like during certain times, especially during stressful times with the building stuff like that, you would always hear violin music playing. Um, and the reason is because back when the building was completed in 1926, they had an old janitor there work overnights, and so when he loner had his dog, walked and did stuff. But the thing he liked doing at night was he'd play his violin, like things like Strauss and Stravinsky and stuff like that. And so he always walked through there and stuff like that. And so he always ended up going to the balconies to play at because it creates the most reverberation and sound stuff like that. So really, that's what's crazy. The fact is, like even now, or at least I don't know. I'm saying now, based on whenever the story was published. It is now no longer the Houston Library. It's now called the Houston Metropolitan Research Center.
mm-hmm.
It switched its stuff, but supposedly, I mean, even through like the worst storms, stuff like during like basically through the big storms that flooded downtown, you could hear the music faintly in the background if you were in the building at the time. But
Interesting.
yeah, Mr. Kramer was the name of the gentleman who was the janitor and watchman with him and with his dog who play violin. and
Hmm.
you can still hear it apparently, yeah, up to today, I guess, because the building's still standing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the other ones that you heard about a lot more in downtown Houston was the Spaghetti Warehouse. Spaghetti Warehouse, like there was a whole bunch of like old stuff in there, which kind of makes sense. It was a very old building. It was right there on the bayou. I forgot what it initially was, but I think it was some kind of station of sorts, just because of the way it's built and everything. And it's right there on the bayou. And I remember eating there with my family as a kid, and reading I think they had like the story of it on the back of the menu about how haunted it was, and we asked if we could go upstairs because that's where most of the you know sightings and things happened, and they let us look around, and I don't know if it was the host or the manager or whoever they were. They were telling us like, yeah, there was a janitor who worked here, and you've heard variations of this story a million times. They don't allow people to eat up there anymore because of everything that happens. Things just go wrong, things break for no reason. Plates fly, and but one of the janitors went into the restroom to clean it up, and she walked by the mirror and saw in the mirror herself on fire. And she flipped out and tried to run for the door and tried to open the door, but the restroom door wouldn't open. And she's like banging on the door. And finally, some other people come up and get the door open, and she freaks out and she quit that night. Yeah. I would love to quit a job like that. Just fuck with the entire staff and be like, I plan on quitting anyway. Stage some like haunting freak out thing and be like, I quit, I'm leaving, I'm done, bye. And just walk out. Especially
Yeah,
if it's a shitty job, you get the whole staff to walk out with you because of a ghost, and the manager's like, what the fuck?
yeah, I've eaten at that spaghetti warehouse. It's fine.
Yeah,
I
it's
would have
it's not
walked out
great.
too.
It's
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 fine.
historical. It's that was, I mean, it's not there anymore. Well, the restaurant, the building's still there,
Yeah, the
but it was one
restaurant's
of those
nice.
things. Like, I've had friends come into town and say, I was like, what do you, is there anything about Houston you want to do? And they're like, kind of want to eat at the Spaghetti Warehouse. And I'm like,
Let's go to spaghetti western instead. It's far better food.
yeah, Spaghetti Western's really good.
Yeah. Actually, like what's weird is something slightly off track. That's fine. When I had to do jury duty there in Houston, and so I actually got picked for a jury. And so for our lunch one day, we got picked. Thinking, all right, cool, we're gonna break for lunch, then we're gonna start the trial. And so the break for lunch is they took us to the spaghetti warehouse because it's right there, and that's the last time I ate there. But it's like really weird to get. All right, cool, you can order. I think what's like you can do like $10 plus a like $10 plate plus a drink. Is was the idea, which most of their stuff is you can buy for around $10, so it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, and like they had
It's
a really small
fine.
menu too. It was just like a page
Yeah,
of like just different pastas and stuff.
it's fine. It's not horror. It's not the worst Italian food I've had. It's definitely not the best, but it was passable, and especially when I'm not paying for it, it's always better when food always tastes a little bit better when you don't pay for it. So,
Oh yeah, for sure.
so that's
Like free
so
is my favorite flavor.
so it's always good. Yeah, I think I picked something simple like spaghetti or lasagna or something like basically like I picked a staple that had nothing weird about it just because I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, but their menu is that basic. Nothing had anything weird about it. I think like I've eaten there like once. I think maybe no, twice, once for sure.
I've done it
And it
twice,
was
but it's
I
like
got like the
15
chicken
years
Alfredo or
difference.
something.
Yeah, but it's like 15 years difference the time ate their first time versus the last time, which is
Yeah, I
I
went
don't know.
with
It's
my
fine.
family, and we were probably, yeah, I was probably like 15, 16. So yeah, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. So let's talk. This is actually a common story, but I did a little research with this, and this is one of those ones that I think this is where this particular story kind of started. So it's really interesting.
Hmm.
So out of San Antonio, Texas, there's actually train tracks at the intersection of Shane and Villamane in South San Antonio. And the reason why it's very famous there and stuff like that is because the story goes that a school bus full of children stalled on the tracks. And then a train rounded the bend, couldn't stop in time, and
Yeah.
and children were killed.
Damn kids.
Now that actually that is a very true thing that did happen there. That is a
Hmm.
factual thing. But according to the legend and the ghost story is that if you park your car in the tracks and put it in neutral, the ghostly children will actually push your car to safety. And then supposedly, like in the dust and grime, you can actually see little kids' handprints on your car that show that they pushed it out of the way.
You want to hear a fun fact about this one? I know a lot of people who have done it, and it turns out it's not. It's completely fake.
Oh, I
Your
know that
car will
aspect.
move.
Yeah,
No, no, no.
yeah,
Here's the thing: your car will move. If you put it in neutral on the tracks, your car will slowly roll,
because the
and
way it's
then
built.
yeah, because the way it's built, and actually the trees in the area grow at a slight angle, so the way when the hill's going down, it still looks straight up.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things. I don't. It's an interesting story.
Yeah,
It's always
and
fun.
that's
But the
another
fact
story
is,
from like everywhere. Everyone's got like the busload of kids on a train track
yeah,
story.
but this is one of the ones that like they actually there actually is tales of a bus actually did get hit there, so that part
Hmm.
is true. A lot of the other ones in other areas can trust with that, but they can't explain what it is. So this is one of the weird. Like I think this is where that story originated before it like blew up to go everywhere, and then
Hmm.
suddenly there's a small town in every state that had this same thing happen. And I think at least
Hmm.
the initial something, but like the fact is on how the road is set up there, it's a natural course of action. And I think just dirt and grime, you see what you want to see. It's
Yeah,
that
for
whole
sure. Like the people who
it's
put
like
powder all over the back of their car, like it's like yeah, that kind of looks like a handprint, but it's not a handprint.
it's like Jesus and burnt toast sort of situation. So you see what you want to see. So
I went to this was years ago, but I went to Ripley's Believe It or Not in L.A. And they actually, instead of having like Jesus burnt into toast, they had a mosaic of different variations of burnt toast that made Jesus.
ooh, that's
It's just a
fascinating.
huge mosaic of toast that looks like
That's like
Jesus. It was amazing. Yeah.
that is so good. I love that.
Whoa. So here, let me get to the Creepy Hollow one real quick.
Sure.
Um, yeah. So I work at Creepy Hollow. Most of you know that haunted house. I've been working haunted houses. I think this is my 19th year doing it. 19th or 20th. I'm not sure. It's been too fucking long. The one I'm working at currently is Creepy Hollow, and we have a group chat on Facebook. So I posed a question there, and the first comment was from someone named Melissa, and unfortunately, it's a video, and I'm not going to try and play that like a video comment through the phone. It's not going to look good, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can't share
This
the
one,
video onto the thing, so
huh?
I can't. I'd have to have a copy of that to
Oh
show everybody else. I couldn't
no, I'm
show it
saying
through
I'm
the.
not going to take my phone and aim it over here to show it.
Ah, okay, that's fair.
No, it's not going to sound good at all. But basically, what she said was she was leaving the house, got her purse and everything, got ready to go, and she was looking for her keys. Checked her pockets, looked in the purse, dumped the purse out, rummaged in there, put all the stuff back in the purse, walked around her house, looked everywhere, dumped her purse out again, because I've done that. You leave your phone or your wallet somewhere, you still keep checking that pocket. I've done that a million times. But after the third time, she walks back over to her purse. The keys are just hanging out of it. And it's not like, she would miss her keys. They were on a lanyard. The lanyard's just kind of hanging out of the purse.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've had similar situations to things like that. Like I asked my brother if he had a bag of or any pencils in his room. He's like, yeah, I got a box on my desk. Go look. And his desk was a little cluttered. So I'm going to look at moving stuff around. And I remember specifically he had a Nightmare Before Christmas clock. And I remember lifting up the clock to see if they were under it, setting the clock down. And I walked back into the living room. I'm like, yeah, where at on your desk? I don't see them anywhere. He's like, they should be by the clock. I walked back in there and the box of pencils was sitting on top of the clock. And I mean, I lifted this thing and looked under it. And I remember looking at the clock. It was a Nightmare Before Christmas clock. So it had like the characters on the back and everything. So I saw it. lifted it up, set it down. When I walked back in the room, there were the box of pencils. Yeah, that's one of those ones that's like, I can't explain it, but that is a true experience.
The mind and the mind and the eyes do tricky things. What's weird is like of all the functions in the human body, the actual human eye is the least complete with its ability what to do. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
we hear better than we can ever see. We smell better than we can ever see. We taste better than we can ever see as far as comes to the senses because the eye is shit.
Yeah, I mean, like
Um,
when it comes to like different species, like I mean,
yeah.
especially what is it, the mantis shrimp has the most full spectrum vision of any living creature known, and they actually have like three pupils in each eye that intersect and work with each other, and they can see everything. Like what's the word I'm searching for? They can see ultraviolet. They can see exactly what we see, and they can see at least 56 more colors than we can see.
Well, yeah, and like the fact is, the human eye, we have our brain actually fill like our eye only sees so much, so our brain fills in a lot of gaps that to basically is based on just normal information. Like we were there yesterday, so it should be the same. So therefore, that's how that looks.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not we actually see it or not, where brain just goes, well, we've already been here before, so of course it looks like that. And just go. That's why those pictures where people don't know what color things are, that's your brain's fucking with you because your eyes are shit. So
Yeah,
something like
I mean,
so
there's a
like
good chance that like I looked at that clock and just like my mind saw the clock
yeah,
and like
and so you
just
didn't click your mind didn't because because your brother said the box is here, which is not exactly on the clock. So that's where you were looking for it. Now
mm,
you weren't looking at the clock. You were looking at the clock so much that it was a clock, but you didn't recognize the fact that the box was there versus the other place where it should have been. Just because you're
yeah,
not used to looking at that sort of stuff. I'm not saying that there isn't some weird, like malevolent, fuck with you, like entity in
yeah,
that area, but it's like sometimes you have to understand that we can't a lot of times trust what we see just because our eyes are
hmm yeah.
shit. So
I mean, I equated it to a just kind of like I wouldn't say malevolent, but I would say just mischievous. Was I never felt threatened. Well, a couple of times, but never for the most part felt threatened about whatever was in my house, whether it was residual energy or
yeah.
whatever. I never felt threatened by it, but it was definitely like I'd like to hide things. It would knock stuff over, pull open cabinets, all kinds of weird stuff like that. So, the possibility of it like hiding a box of pencils from me for, 2 minutes just to be a dick. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
But she also posted a couple other things. We'll get through her comments. They're pretty short, and then we can go into another more famous one.
Yeah, yeah.
But Melissa also said, I got hit with a rock at the haunt by an unseen force. I've seen a woman standing in a 2-story window staring at me. Problem was the house was old and there wasn't anything left but the outside walls, so she was standing on air. That's common. I mean, that can go with like the residual energy thing again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I've been hit with stuff too. I mean, it could be like it could have been a bug flying into you. I mean, but I've also been like hit with something and then watched it bounce across the ground. And I'm just standing in my driveway,
Yeah.
and it's not like like a squirrel's gonna throw a rock at me or something.
That's true.
But
Oh, hey, the amazing Boobzilla's in the chat going, oh, hi, I recognize those faces.
hi Zilla.
Hey.
Also, she said Halloween 2 years ago, I had a pair of riding boots. That's all that was visible, other than a faint outline of legs. Walk out in front of my car in Sugarland.
Okay.
That'd be interesting. Just see some shoes running by.
Oh, yeah.
There's an interesting Stephen King story about shoes.
That's true.
I think it's called Shoes.
Boobzilla goes, is this place where I can get a seance because my boobs are haunted?
Yeah, the entities.
The entities, yes. Hey, we got jokes here.
She also said, I've had spirits touch me, grab me, and save my life. Like I could see that. There's a lot of people like, it just depends on how they interpret it. Some people think it's God. Some people think it's spirits. Some people think it's serendipity, just, you don't know. Like, because there's been all those, the very common story in this situation is, I couldn't find my keys, and I was 5 minutes late to work, but had I left on time, I would have been hit by this car at this intersection. It's like God saved my life, and it's like, no, you just misplaced your keys.
That happens.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Everybody does. That's the thing, is unless you're like super OCD about where you leave your shit, then yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've trained myself better. Like when I get home from work, I toss the keys in a basket in the kitchen, just so like, bam, they're there. But even still, like I'll walk in and just like, oh, I didn't put the keys down, and just leave them on the washer for some reason because I walked by it or whatever. Take them to my bedroom.
No, that's no keys. Yeah, I have my little bar here that when I walk in, so all my stuff goes there anyway. So it's never like that big a deal. I'll do things like I'll forget shit, but that's a different sort of story. That has nothing to do with itching a tribute to to ghosty stuff. Like had I only brought my water bottle, I would not have had to stop. Yada yada, that sort of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Behar County Hospital. So, according to legend, there was a murderous apparition that actually went from room to room in the old Behar County Hospital, killing patients in order of their room number. For one particular ward, they kept talking about some lady, some nurse that was actually dressed in an old-fashioned uniform. Hospital staff checked monitors, all that sort of stuff. Could never find this lady, and sometimes they'd see patients seemingly talking to somebody who wasn't there. Staff grew more suspicion when patients actually started dying in room number order, and the death order it ended when it stopped at a room that was empty. So basically, like room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4, and then there's nobody in room 5, so that's when it stops.
Yeah.
Not an uncommon, like there's been the angels death ghost stories I've had in the past, but here's the fucked up thing, and there actually was a very real angel of death at that hospital. Her name was Janine Jones. She was actually convicted of poisoning anywhere from 11 and to 50 infants from
I've heard of this.
1970. Yeah, it's from 1977 to 1982. So not really dressed in an old-fashioned uniform. She's actually in. She's actually in serving a life sentence in Gatesville.
Nice. Well, that's good. She needs
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So Zilla's in the chat, and they talked about when we moved into my stepdad's house, I discovered it was haunted by his previous wife that had passed away like 2 years before. They were actually able to describe their appearance in complete detail, and it turns out that Zilla had saw her in what she was last wearing, like her last living, I guess, living outfit when she was alive, not as opposed to what she was. Of course, the person was buried in. Really kind of freaky. Not gonna lie, kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen some weird stuff like that. There's one story. I don't know if I could probably tell it online, but I'll have to tell it some other time. I think I've got one more personal experience, but then there's a couple that that happened at the haunted house. We definitely have the ghost at the haunt. Haven't seen her, but I haven't seen her, but others have. She's definitely messed with me when I was there alone, and me and Autumn one night as well when we were the only ones there. Another person asked, "What's her name?" Because I think she has a name. And then somebody else put, "The little ghost girl from the haunt used to mess with me a lot. One of my first encounters with her, I was working my room. Customers were standing right in front of me, and all of a sudden, the fan I had hidden behind the door flew across the room in front of them. Fast forward, door flew across the room. Fast forward later, I always used to sit my glasses on top of that same fan while I was working. Uh, Finally, the night is over, and I couldn't find them anywhere, and I was leaving for Corpus the next day and staying a week. I come back to the haunt that Friday, and me, Bubba, and Steve were walking to my car right before we were about to have our factory meeting and open the house when Steve hears someone whisper in his ear to look down. He turned around and nobody's around him. He looked down, and my glasses were laying right by his feet in the parking lot. The night I'm driving Steve, Bubba, and the other person home, and we're talking about the little girl ghost. All of a sudden, at the same time that I see what I looked like a deer jumping over the car, something crashed into the back driver's side door of my car. We all felt the car violently shake from the impact. I pulled over and we all got out of the car. There was no dent or even a scratch anywhere to be found, and no animals anywhere.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I haven't had experiences with the ghost at Creepy Hollow. But Teddy Bear, I'm just going to call him that. My buddy Teddy Bear, he's working at Creepy Hollow with us now, but we both started off at Nightmare on the Bayou. And I worked there for 10 years. He worked there longer than that. The thing about Nightmare on the Bayou is it was at Party Boy. So you know where Party Boy is. Party
Ah,
Boy
yeah,
is
I
like
know.
just a
Yeah.
big party supply store. They have Halloween decorations all year round, and they had a costume rental with a bunch of cool stuff in it. And had like a little bit of land behind it, fenced off, because the costume rental used to actually be a party hall that you could rent out. So there's a kitchen and all kinds of stuff in there. Right behind that is Olive Wood Cemetery, one of the oldest cemeteries in Houston. And, you know, you don't really think about anything like that. We hear stuff moving in the woods, but I always assumed it was homeless people because, you know, we're right there off the freeway. You know, that's a good spot to go, is right in the woods. Nobody can fuck with you. But I think it was the year after I left, a surveyor came out to the haunt, and they had to shut it down for some kind of like survey testing, and they did like some ground x-ray stuff for whatever reason, and they couldn't tell 100%, but they were pretty sure the property was lying on unmarked graves. So we built a haunted house on top of an unmarked graveyard that was next to the historic cemetery. Teddy Bear and we basically built this haunted house. We were in there by ourselves, you know, like middle of the night, and it was, you know, I'm on one side I'm in one room holding up a piece of drywall, and he's on the other side to attach it. And even though, you know, we're right across a piece of drywall from each other, if I wanted to get to him, I would literally have to walk this winding zigzag hallway just to get to him. It'd take me a couple minutes. There was butcher plastic hanging up in one of the doorways behind me, and I'm holding it up, and I hear flapping, and I look over, and this shit's just moving like somebody walked through it. You know, we called him George, and I was like, "Hey, I think George is here," and he's like, "Yeah, I kind of felt like somebody was standing behind me," and then we hear behind Teddy Bear, and he's like, "All right, time to go." So we just, you know, packed it up and left right then. There was another night. It's a gated property, and the front gate is remote control, and there's like the button right there in the front of the store. So we had to walk, you know, from the haunt, since it was the warehouse part was connected. Had to walk through the store to the front, push the button to close it, then walk back through. I'm walking through with Teddy Bear one night, and we hear, you know, stuff kind of rustling around. There's animatronics in there, you know, like motion sensor, and we hear motion sensor, you know, monster go off like from the other side of the room. And it's like, okay. Then the one in front of us kind of moves and starts doing stuff on its own. And we're like, all right, fuck. Okay, let's push the button, get the fuck out of here. Teddy Bear had to do it alone most nights. And one night in particular, if I'm remembering the story correctly, he's walking through and he knows there's an animatronic like just kind of right here, and he is walking down this aisle, and a bag of candy falls off the shelf, for no fucking reason, just slam right behind him. He turns around all freaked out, and then looks back in front of him, and the animatronic is turned towards him now, and it turns on. It's like a witch that starts screaming and laughing at him. I don't think he closed the gate that night. I mean, even if that was, just vibration, happenstance, whatever, anything, I'd still be freaked the fuck out too.
Oh no, I mean, the experience as far as how you felt when doing this stuff is still real. Now, the reason why this stuff is happening, that's what's conjecture. And so, but I'm not going to doubt the fact is like weird shit happened, freaked him out. It would freak me out too. And then but then it'd be me going, all right, cool. Tomorrow I'm going to figure this shit. But it just comes down to what you want to do and stuff like that. So, we got time for we'll do one more story each, and then we'll cut out. So I'm going to talk about Bragg Road. Bragg Road is in the middle of the big thicket here in Texas. It's a road that stretches. Let me get this right. It's out in Hardin County, and it bridges in between Saratoga and the now defunct village of Bragg Station. It's a very straight road, and the reason why it's a very straight road is because back in the turn of the century, turn of the century, like 1900, the Santa Fe Railroad actually built a rail line down that way. And then after it had been open for a while, they started seeing mysterious ghost lights, which is a very common sort of theme that goes on. Around the 1935 or 1940, they got rid of the rail line and made it a road. And even to this day, on a calm night, you can still see that ghost light of the former train or whatever still come through there. The reason why this is another big thing is because, apparently, and they actually posted a picture in National Geographic back in 1974 concerning the Bragg Road light. It's actually part of the Ghost Road Scenic Drive parks areas where you can actually, it's on a map, basically, as you can take a Ghost Drive map that goes across the world and does that sort of stuff. So it has like these bigger stops as far as like people, like it's a very famous sort of thing that happens. Now, why it happens, is it something like is it that it's haunted by the Mexican laborers helped build the railroad, or a deserter shot by Confederate soldiers, just a hunter lost in the woods, or a decapitated railroad bridgesman searching for his head? That's an old story of all this stuff. There's like some old ghost stories concerning that sort of thing. It's been around for a long time too. But it's one of those weird kind of. Here's another weird thing, like East Texas. Well, we got the Bragg Road and we got racists. That's what we have in East Texas, and so.
And South Texas and West Texas and North Texas.
We got a lot of racists here.
Woo, Texas. Yeah.
I mean, we were Texas was the last state to stop fighting during the Civil War, so.
Yeah. And they just started fighting everybody else after that.
Oh yeah, then it just became the ultimate in that the jingoism of America, where people talk about, America's talked about themselves. They go, not nearly as much as what most Texans do. So.
Yeah, we'll talk about being Texan before we talk about being American.
True story. So you got anything else?
Yeah, I got one more.
Okay. Cool.
Another person from the haunted house, but I wanted to get the more haunted house related ones out before this. But this is Deborah. Deborah's cool people. So yeah, let me scroll a little bit. My most vivid experience happened when I was 8. We lived in an old farmhouse in the country. My mom talked about how her alarm clock kept getting turned over upside down. One night I was sitting on the end of my bed when my dog started to growl and lean closer to me. I looked up and there was a man standing in the doorway to my room. He was wearing old torn overalls and a flannel shirt. He was holding what appeared to be the head of my mom's cat in one hand and its body in the other. He just stood there in my doorway. I screamed my head off and ran into my brother's room where I stayed the rest of the night. The next morning, I told my mom about it and how I thought her cat was dead. She ended up finding that cat hiding in her closet. That was the only time I saw him, but he would flush our toilet several times during the night to piss off our landlord, who lived main level of the house, but blocked off from the rest of the house. A few days later, my brother and I were exploring the woods in the yard. It was like over 100 acres. And we found the unmarked cemetery there where headstones with names and dates, but nothing else. Some of them were even pets. So like a weird, maybe, I don't know, small town cemetery.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely like there's a cemetery we used to go to, and it was an old like Civil War era cemetery, like out in I think Tomball, maybe. It's been years since I've been there. But just you go down this road in the middle of nowhere, and then there's a field and it's somebody's property. So we would jump the fence, and then you go in the back, and there's like 100-year-old graves back there.
Wow. It's really interesting. Sorry, once again, not disputing what she saw. Trying to figure out. Probably an apparition who just had a cat that basically reminded her maybe of her mom's cat, which is why that is what it was.
Yeah.
Less about that it wasn't actually that cat, but just think about especially ghosts. They're very rarely like in full color, so gray cat looks like a black cat, which also looks like a white cat because they all look basically the same. It's like so, but as far as a child looking at that sort of thing, that's the thing that you react to because cat must be it's in the house, so it must be my mom's cat, that sort of thing. But really
Yeah.
weird. That's really
Yeah. I mean,
weird.
I've swerved all crazy while driving because I thought my cat ran out into the middle of the street in front of me, but I was 15 miles from home. It just looked exactly like my cat.
Yeah. No, it's really weird. I mean, it's a nice story. I think I want to everybody who will probably hopefully be watching later. Thank you guys for contributing your stories. I just tracked down some stuff when it came down to some famous stories. We didn't really talk about that last time. I figured it'd be cool to talk about some famous like Texas stories and things like that, ranging anywhere from stuff that is very common versus other stuff, and then some weirdly
Yeah.
specific stuff, which is really cool. It's like that.
Yeah.
So,
Jenny wanted to pop in tonight, but she wasn't feeling too well. So
well, that's
maybe next
fine.
time we do ghosts, I'll have her come in and tell some stories.
Yeah, it's like that'll be a regular ghosts. There are two subjects we're gonna infinitely talk about. One is ghosts, and the other is gonna be aliens. And so we'll be talking about aliens soon. I just don't know exactly when. We'll figure that out. Yeah, there you go. Because there's infinite stories about that. I count in
Yeah.
D's. All right, so
Yeah. That's what I've been painting lately.
oh, okay, very cool. So what have you got to plug, Scabs?
Um, I'm still going to. I tested it out today with Mod God Lee. I was out at Creepy Hollow. Did a little Zoom chat. I kind of walked around the property. Um, as long as I don't go in a building, I should be fine. Yeah, but there's plenty of like I'll probably record like my show from a different angle every night. We will after that it's only a 30-minute show, so maybe I'll talk to Broken for a little while. Maybe I'll talk to Brett or Chris P. Maybe I'll talk to some of the other crazy characters we got running around there. So it'll be a good old time.
That's very cool. That's gonna be a lot of fun. So yeah, for people in the Houston area, make sure you go out to the Creepy Hollow Haunted House. It opens up this weekend, Friday night. There
Yes.
are no when I say there is no inside attractions. Everything is strictly outside. Please maintain your social distancing. Wear your mask.
We've got one haunt open. We've got the woods open. Since it's outside, can't get too close to anybody. I was actually there last Saturday doing like training people how to scare from far away. Because like I said, I've been doing this for too damn long. So I mean, it'll be as safe as we can make it. Masks are required by patrons and and honkers. Everybody there will be in a mask. We will have officers there. So, I mean, they're going to enforce it. If you're not wearing a mask, we will kick you off the property. We're just trying to be safe for everybody out here, guys. That's the least you can do for them.
That's true. Yeah, you should. So that's no, you should. Uh, uh, Saturday from so okay, so that's good. So yes, please make sure you're in the Houston area or even in the South Texas area. Houston's not that far away. We live in Texas. 3 hours is still kind of close. So
Yeah, it took me about an hour to get there today, but like that's with all the traffic and everything. But on the
yeah.
way home, it took me 35 minutes.
So yeah, I mean, I've been if my schedule aligns, I'll try to come down there. It just depends on. Uh, I live in Austin, for people who don't know, and I work at a costume shop, and so we're getting into the busy season as well, where I'm going to working 6 days a week, uh, 8 to 10 hour days, and I still come on and make sure everybody's entertained on the channel as well. Speaking of that, on Wednesday. Devil's Hour is going to be popping up all new once again. We've got some amazing acts. I've got a really great clown drag artist from Toronto by the name of Lady Cunterpunt, which is just such an awesome
I
name.
like it.
Such a great name. We've got the Immortals with a Z. They're like a horror pop outfit out of Austin, Texas.
Nice.
I didn't get the chance to put this band on last week, so I'm putting it on this week. Giant Kitty, they're a really cool, like Riot Girl sort of group out of Houston. Amazing
Yeah,
people.
I've
And
jammed
then
some
I've
Giant
got,
Kitty before.
yeah, they're a lot of fun. And then the last one I have is going to be a surprise. It's only purposeful because Scabs will get this because it happens to be somebody's birthday that day. So I'm going to do a thing that even they don't know.
Hmm. I don't
You
know
got
whose
to invite.
birthday it is.
Well, you got invited to the thing for the Scabs birthday thing. Oh, no, sorry, the Zoom birthday party
Ah,
that
that's
day.
it.
So, yeah. So, but yes, make sure you tune in to watch that as well. And then Saturday for G Spot because uh, October is such a weird time of year for all of us that are performers and sideshow people and stuff like that. Well, a lot of people aren't working. This is kind of that weird kind of like this is like Christmas season, so it's like trying to get people to let people have their time off. So what I'm going to be doing instead is I'm still doing G Spot, but I'm going to show movies. I'm going to show really cool horror movies that I like from back in the day, so old school black and white movies. And I'm going to start off with Carnival of Souls.
Ooh, good one. Good one.
That is a really
I
good
haven't
one.
watched that in forever.
Guess what? Well, you can what? No, you can't because you're busy at the hop. You can watch it later on the feed because
Hmm.
that's a great thing about this is like the feed is on here for 2 weeks, and any show that I'm a part of and do stuff with, I have my own website, devilshour.live, that I throw a lot. I throw all the shows I'm a part of onto that later. So once we hit past that 2 week mark, you can still watch the shows. Just go to my website, devilshour.live. Otherwise, you're gonna see me and Scabs again on Monday talking about something fun and goofy. We haven't. We made it. We figured out what we were gonna do up to this point, and now we
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
what
we
we're
hit,
gonna do
we
yet.
figured out our month. We need to figure out next month.
Yeah,
But I've kicked around some ideas.
we're gonna have fun. We're gonna chat after this is done. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Everybody be safe, be cool, be groovy, and as always, keep drinking.